I'm here out at Alsea Bay in Walport, and I talked to Robbie Hansen. He runs the dock of the bay, and I tried my regular crab spot. It was okay, but nothing great, and he told me a spot to go, and we have limited out. So I got 4 more crabs to get, and we're going to pull this trap and see if we can get it, because we've been doing really well. So what I do is I just paddle right by the traps, the buoys. I use the oar to hook them up, pick them up, and I put it off the other side. And then I just pull up. Well, I feel, oh boy, this has weight. This has weight. Oh, I can feel it. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This has weight. Oh, this is heavy. We only need 4 more and we'll have our limit. It's been a really good day. Oh yeah. Oh, I can see I got some keepers here. This is crabbing at Walport. That's a female. Throw her back with the trap. And what a great day. I can already see I got my limit. Fantastic. We're up at Alsea Bay in Walport. My contact is Robbie Hansen at the dock of the bay. Great info, always tells you exactly what's happening with the crabbing. You see I got my electric motor, 62-pound thrust motor from Newport Vessels. Pretty doggone good motor. In fact, I joke you can take up a skier. We ran out of battery juice. I got my paddles here. One of the other things I've done with my paddles is this is like a fake leather, and I've just wrapped it and then taped it with some electrical PVC tape. And when it goes along the gunnels, it's completely silent. And it just makes paddling a dream, and it makes it really quiet. Coming up, I'll be heading to Wyoming, and we will be filming with a whole bunch of professional wildlife photographers, podcasters, really well-known photographers, and we're going to be capturing wildlife, and we're going to try to do it in a canoe where we can get shots that people only dream about. So we'll be in Yellowstone for several weeks here in the fall, in October, in Grand Tetons, and that's where we'll be, and enjoy that. That's coming up shortly. Thank you. I have not picked up this canoe once where I didn't smile or even outright start laughing because it's so light. This is just a dream to carry. Hey Robbie, I got some crab here for you to cook up. Can you do that for me?
Yes sir, I'll cook them right now.
Oh, thank you.
All right,
perfect.
Beauties. We're going to take these crab out of here. We're going to dump them in cold water, stop the cooking process and separate the meat from the shell. After that, we're going to start cleaning.
So how to clean a crab thoroughly is we're going to actually use the pinchers. So go ahead and point to one not to use. Don't use the claw. And that one is a little too flat and it's not as narrow, and they're a little more flexible. Show the prime one. That one. Each crab comes with its own crab cleaner. Go ahead and just start going at it, Carol. She gets every single fiber out of crab. And when I was a fireman, I'd go to work and I'd bring this big Tupperware thing full of crab. And my friends would go, holy mackerel, how long did that take? I go, I don't know, my wife would do that because she didn't want me to waste crab, and they just all fell on the floor. They go, my wife would never crack crab for me. But I got a lovely wife and she does that for me, and we get a lot of great eating crab. All right, this is our war room here. It's for setup when we're cleaning crab. We use these stainless steel bowls. We put hot water in there, or fairly warm water, because these crab have been sitting on ice and they're cold. So when you're done with cracking a little bit of crab to get shells off, you just drip it like that, boom, you're done, it's clean. Here's our trophy mix. This is all our crab. This is some Hawaiian sea salt. And you can use kosher salt or a little bit of salt there, and we just sprinkle that in. That really makes the crab flavor pop. One of the other key things when you're making good crab, especially crab sandwiches, what we're making tonight, is you gotta extract the water from the crab. It makes it much better. So we're gonna just push this down, get all that water out. And you can see how wet that paper towel is. Just goes into our recycle. I'm gonna do it one more time. Double it up, get down here, condense that crab. The drier your crab, the better the mayonnaise will adhere to it, and the more flavor you'll get, less water. So here's our crab now, and it is ready to go. And that stuff, escapees, got to take care of them. Another thing we do is we add a little touch of mayonnaise. It boosts the flavor. And we mix that up with the crab, and it's going to be a fantastic crab sandwich. Some people like a lot of mayonnaise. I like just enough to moisten the crab to make that flavor pop. That salt's really going to make it pop. You got to be careful with salt, because this crab comes from the ocean. It's already salty, so you can easily add too much salt. But just a little bit of salt, just like when you go to a fancy restaurant and they give you a roll with butter, and the butter's garnished with salt, it just makes the flavors pop. So this crab is ready to go for a sandwich. We got to do corrections. My wife instructed me, this is Himalayan salt. It's not Hawaiian salt because it's pink. And my wife does not like any salt with her crab. She says a little bit of salt can ruin it. So go very gently. You can't take the salt out. You can add a little bit more. Just add a little bit to your flavor taste. And when you get the crab you want, then you got a fantastic sandwich. Let's finish up. Preheat your pan. I use a stick of butter, and I just grease up the pan below the bread, nice and sizzling. Drop my bread in, and then I redo it as I flip my bread, and that bread's done. Do the same thing to this side. Butter up the pan. Get it around. I'm going to re-butter up the pan. Drop my bread down. And if you want to add a little butter, you can just kind of melt right here and just rub it on the bread to get just what you want. And that'll do a great job. When you're grilling your sourdough bread, it's better to be on a slower heat than a high heat. You can always re-toast it. But if you get a little too hot, you can end up burning it. A good spatula you can just push down. Many times in restaurants they'll have hot irons, weighted irons they'll put on the bread. I just use my spatula for that. Get this nice and toasty. I like my bread toasted and really golden brown and crispy. And I like to eat my crab sandwich with the crab cold and the bread still hot and toasty. One of the ways I like to treat myself is this is a fresh, ripe tomato from my garden. to get a chance to put that on a crab sandwich, you're talking something else. You might have asked why the newspaper. Easy cleanup. All right, some of the tools I didn't mention, I use a nutcracker, walnut cracker. To me this is neat, there's no splattering. My wife is an expert with a hammer. She hits it, cracks it, and she can split hairs with it. It's kind of like a guy that cuts diamonds. She cuts crab. This is my favorite tool. So we're gonna build our crab sandwich here. The bread is hot, off the pan. We're gonna lay down our crab, make our sandwich. Good thing I didn't miss the plate. Oh wow, this is gonna be good. There's my garden fresh tomatoes. Wow. Gonna make our sandwich. Let's give it a try. Heaven. This is fantastic. Go out there, get your own crab, enjoy. Remember, if you like this video, you feel some of the information is useful, hit the subscribe button. The bell, notifications. I'll keep you updated on all my newest videos, tips and tricks, things that will help you get more crab, more clams, more fish. Thanks for watching. Hey, we're going to talk about specifically crabbing in Oregon. And I'm going to show you my setup and some of the strategies I use to get my limits of crabs consistently. I use 3 conical hoop traps for my crabbing. You're allowed 3 traps in Oregon, and you can have anything you want, but you're only allowed 3. So 3 poles if you're fishing from shore, 3 hoop traps, 3 box traps, whatever you want, but you're limited to 3 in Oregon. The advantage is you can crab year round, and we're going to get into the specific months and tides that you want to crab a little later. Always have a paddle with me regardless. I'll have my safety horn, my toss rope. I have waders. I'll always have a life vest. Always have a life vest with me. If you wear a life vest in the waders, I have a video on that shows you how you'll be the safest ever in the water. You'll float for days because if you use waders properly, they're a flotation device as well. I make my own buoys. I always like a double buoy. I paint them up with different letters and numbers so I can identify them how I pull them. In California, and I believe even in Oregon now, you have to have this little red float attached to your buoys. In California, it is required as a sport fisherman to identify you from anybody that's commercial. So when you're out in sports season, you have to have this. You do have to have your name. I use my phone number, license, or OD number for your fishing license. Either way, you got to have some identification marks on your buoys. And the mats. The other thing is I use the mats. I've showed you in other videos how I lay those out and how I fitted them for my canoe. That allows me to have some protection for my canoe. I'm going to show you these items a little separately and we'll go over them. My essential items are, first off, my Basswood 17 Winona. I did a whole video on the advantages of this over other canoes and kayaks and small boats. You can check that out under the Perfect Boat video. This is a Bending Branches paddle. Get yourself a high quality paddle. It's just a dream to use. I actually taped on, it's a imitation leather. And I just wrapped it in a spiral and put it down with some PVC electrical tape. And this is really silent on these gunnels when you're paddling. You don't hit the wood, there's no clicking or banging noise. It's really silent and great for approaching game, which we'll show you in our Yellowstone video. As far as traps go, I did a whole video on the advantages of conicals over all other traps. They're one of the fastest crab catching devices out there because it's really easy for the crab to get in, fall in. When you pull them up, they actually stay in, they can't climb out like they can do with other rings that are reversed. And they're not as bulky as the box traps. And you can see that's 3 traps right there. And that easily fits in my canoe, and I'll show you that whole setup. I always have a life vest with me, especially if I'm wearing waders. And I showed you how if you have waders and a life vest, you will always stay afloat. These are my buoy systems. These are a couple buoys that I paint up in a particular pattern just to make it a little easier to identify. I always double buoy because a lot of people single buoy and it's really hard to tell. I always put a number system or a letter system on the bottom of my canoe. And like I said, in California, you were required to have this red float to identify you as a sport crabber. You have to have identification marks on your buoys, regardless if you're in California, Oregon, or Washington. So that's something you just follow the regs, put your name, phone number, license number, whatever it takes to qualify for that. I talked about the foam mats in detail in an earlier video, protecting your investment. And these really protect the bottom of the canoe, especially when you're dumping crab, and you'll see what I mean shortly. The other items that I need to mention is a couple of buckets. These I got from Harbor Freight. There's an old paint bucket. These are what I put my crab in. I can keep them separate. If I get the super jumbos, they'll go in the red bucket. Crabs that are marginal will go in here. And that way I know which ones are the biggest automatically, and I can also keep count. So in California, you're allowed 10 crabs. In Oregon, which we're talking about, you're allowed 12. And with 3 traps, I've limited out with 12 keepers in Oregon in under 18 minutes, just pulling traps the first time. All 3 rings done. So that's how good the crabbing can be, especially with a canoe that you can get in right on top where the crab are. Now, can you crab without a canoe? Absolutely. In fact, there's many good docks from Newport to Alsea Bay to all the way up the coast. Last year it was early November and we were at Garibaldi, which is Tillamook Bay, and this is the first time I've ever seen it. I witnessed guys, different individuals, catching their limits of 7-inch and bigger crabs from a dock. Now that's doable in a boat or a canoe on a regular basis, but from fishing from shore on a dock, 7-inchers, a limit, is really tough. I talked to the locals, and several locals told me it was the best crabbing they've seen in 20+ years. So Tillamook Bay is one of the places we'll talk about when we talk about crabbing. For Siletz and Tillamook or Garibaldi, they are not affected by rain. So if you get a huge rain, it can blow out Newport, it can blow out Walport, Alsea Bay, Reedsport. Many of the places will get blown out with heavy rains, and it's too much fresh water, and the crab go back in the ocean. Tillamook Bay, Siletz Bay, not affected by rain. So it can be pouring rain, and as soon as it stops, or if you don't mind going out in the rain, you go out, you're gonna have a great time, you'll catch your crab. The best months, again, are September, October, November, December, into January. You're gonna catch some really good big crab all on the coast. Remember, if it's raining really heavy, hit Siletz and hit Tillamook Bay. You're gonna have a great time. Some of the items I will never be without when I'm crabbing is I always have extra flotation devices. These are Coast Guard approved. I throw them around the canoe. They're great for kneeling on, sitting on, a little more comfort throughout the day. But it's just extra flotation devices. Always have them in my canoe regardless. This is a, mentioned it before, this is a Scotty safety equipment kit. It has a throw rope, little flashlight, and more importantly, it has a whistle. And whistles are required in certain parts of Oregon on the rivers, bays. You have to have a whistle for emergency. This is a great little safety kit to always have with you. I also have my horn, which you'll see in my canoe videos. I show you all these upgrades with the mats and everything. In the video, you can find it down in the selection of canoe videos called Canoe Upgrades. go to the Canoe Upgrades and you'll see all this equipment and how I use it. Another item I'll never be out, I'll tether this to the canoe. This is just a simply Clorox bottle, or a bleach bottle, not Clorox by brand, but it was a bleach bottle with the bottom cut out. This makes a great baler. Scoops really fast, it flexes with the canoe. You can empty the canoe with water real quickly because you're in a canoe. You're always going to get water in a boat, in a canoe. You need some type of baler. I mean, some people go as far as having pumps or even electric ones. This will do it faster, quicker, and it costs you nothing if you got an old bottle laying around. Another item that I'll have for my wife or other people that I bring out crabbing is some long pinchers that they can grab the crab and throw away the females or undersized ones. I never use these because I'm really comfortable picking up crab, and possibly you'll see me in the videos. I just go through like boom, 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 and I eject them pretty fast. So I never get pinched. Only got pinched once, and that was a barely legal crab, and I was planning on letting it go, but it pinched me, so I kept it, cooked it, and it was the best tasting crab I ever had. That's what happens when they pinch you. But this is really good for beginners to have confidence in handling crab. I talked a whole lot about the Basswood 17 as being the perfect small boat for crabbing. As far as kayaks and canoes go, you can't compare the difference. I have friends that kayak all the time. They're actually, I'd almost call them professionals. They work for big companies. I don't want to mention the names of the companies because they're actually looking at my canoe pretty hard because they just see the advantages of it. But they're actually promoters of the kayaks, and they said they can put on 1, 2, maybe 3 traps. And that's all you need in Oregon, because that's all you can use is 3 traps. When you come to California, you can use as many as 10. Now, I can't work 10 because it's just too much, but I can work 5, and I don't know any kayak that I've ever seen with 5 traps. And usually they end up with real flimsy traps. I'm allowed to use those conical traps, getting me tons of crab quickly, and 5 traps is basically as fast as you can work if the crabbing's good. You can't work any more than that. And then there's a certain amount, you want a certain amount of traps out there to get the bulk of the crab, but you also don't want to have so many crabs that you're spending tons of money on bait. And I found 5 to be the perfect amount of crab traps for California. In Oregon, you're limited to 3, but like I said, I limited out in 18 minutes with 3 traps in Oregon, and that's 12 crab. Conversely to California, that's only 10. 10 in California, though, we tend to get 7 inches or bigger, and that's what we're looking in California. Oregon, they tend to be a little bit smaller. I wish everybody did what Washington does. Washington does not allow you to keep a soft shell crab. Nobody should keep a soft shell crab. They don't taste good. They're not that tasty. They're mostly water, and just put them back, let them grow up, and just keep the hard shells, and we'll have more crab, better crabbing in the future for everybody. So nobody should be keeping a soft shell crab, in my mind. To me, that's just, it's not very sporting. Perfect boat. A lot of people want to know more details about the Basswood 17 from Winona that I have, which I've described as the perfect boat. In fact, I have a video called The Perfect Boat. Go down in the canoe videos, watch that. It goes into detail why it's a superior over small boats, why it's superior over kayaks, why it's superior over most canoes. It's an incredible boat. Many times you'll see me out in the water, I'll have a motor on. It's a saltwater motor. I've set up a special bracket. I have a video down below in the videos. If you watch that, it's building the ultimate motor mount, which is critical for your canoe. You get yourself an electric motor, and the one I have is 62-pound thrust, and I joke that I can take up a skier. It's from Newport Vessel. I got it on Amazon. It was under 200 bucks, and I did have some electrical problems, and they turned around and sent me a brand new motor. It was unbelievable. They sent it to me in 3 days because I was on a vacation. I wanted to take my grandson fishing, and I called up the guy. It was hard to get a hold of him, but once I got a hold of him, they said, the motor's on the way. I couldn't believe it. It came the next day, and now I have 2 motors. One was broken, and I fixed it by getting a new part from Newport, the controller that burnt up, and now I've got 2 great working motors. I expect those, some of the electronics will sometimes go, but it's like a $20, $30 investment, and it's a great motor. 62-pound thrust on a canoe like mine, it takes off and goes. Let's talk about crabbing. Oregon. We're going to go over some specific spots, times of day to crab, and tides. Preferably the crab are the most active at night. If it's allowed and you're crabbing at night, you're going to do extremely well. But most of us crab during daylight hours for safety and for whatever the regulations require in that area. And sunrise is one of the best because you're out there right when the crab are fairly still active, because it's just coming from dark to light, and that's their prime time to get crab if your tides comply with that. And we're going to go over that. So the best tide that you want to hit is at a high tide, and you also want it where the water's very little movement. I'll show you that on the tide charts and the apps I use to find out the best places to crab. One of the contacts I'm going to share with you is Robbie Hansen at Walport at Alsea Bay. He's at a shop called Dock of the Bay, right there by the marina, the boat launch area. He rents boats, rents traps for the people on the docks or the boats. If you get a boat, you get so many traps, etc. He has it all set up. He'll tell you where the crab are, best times to crab, best tides, best baits. Robbie's a great resource. In addition, when I hit other bays, I travel around and I hit the bays that have the best crabbing at that time. And with a little bit of legwork, you'll find out where those crab are. They do come in the fall, and they're plentiful all over. But like I said earlier, I was up in Tillamook Bay, and guys were limiting out with 7 inches. 7 inches from docks, limits. And I go, that's unheard of. Those are big crab. 7 inches or bigger. And that's one of the places you want to hit when there's heavy rain, that and Siletz Bay. They're not affected by rain. So with no further ado, let's get in, and I'm going to show you some tides that you want to look for when you're crabbing. Other crabbers are the single best resource you'll ever get for crabbing. When you ask to look at their crab, be amazed, say, wow, I've never seen crab like that. They love the compliments. They're all proud of themselves. And then ask them the 2 most important questions, but the first one's the most important. Are you crabbing again tomorrow? If they say yes, then leave it alone. Just say, hey, good luck, I'll see you out there. If they say no, remind them, man, these crab move every day from day to day. Where do you recommend I go tomorrow? If they're not coming back, many times they'll put you right on their hotspot, and you'll limit out. I prefer the weather app, the top left, for my general weather. My top right app is tides. I like tides. The moon phase is right below that. I will use that to see the moon phases. I'll know the behavior of game and fish. In the middle, top and middle, are both the weather radars. And I really like the weather radar so I can see what's coming as a storm. At the bottom left, I have both buoys that gives me swell ratings in the ocean. And these are my primary apps when I'm going crabbing. If I'm in the ocean, I do buoys. Otherwise, it's just tides and weather. Windy is what I use for any wind conditions. That's the main thing I'm worried about in a canoe is wind. Let's go over tides. This is the tide app I use. You can see all the water movement. High tide here being right about, if you touch it, it'll tell you what time it is. And that's basically 1:22, and it will say high tide is at 1 o'clock. So if we move this back a little bit, it'll be right at about 1 o'clock. And that's high tide. This is way too much water movement. So let me show you what a good tide looks like. Now you can see this is back in September 26th when I was actually crabbing there. High tides in the morning, and we can get exact high tide. So it's about 9 in the morning, so sunrise is 7, and it actually says the high tide is at 9:36. So you would have all your crab, because you'd be crabbing right at sunrise, very little water movement. The crab feels safe. If there's a lot of water movement, they hunker down into the ground. But this type of tide, this is a perfect tide for crabbing, and you'll be able to crab the whole day. You can see that this is a terrible tide, tons of water movement. You could catch crab right here at the slack tide, but when that tide gets moving, the crab's going to bury themselves in the sand because it's too accidentally, they could get flipped over and they're susceptible to predators. And it's too much work to forage. but when there's very little water movement is when they crab. But you normally crab at slack tide. High tide tends to be the best, especially if you're right at that morning hour. Now here's some tides that are coming up in October, the 24th, which is a Thursday, and you can see very little water movement. Crab will be crabbing. They'll be feeding the entire time from here all the way to here, because there's basically about a foot of water movement, and they'll be foraging the whole day. If it's overcast, even better. This is my tablet. This is my weather, and you can see this is where I have my tides. I also have moon phase, weather, I have swells, etc. We're going to hit this, and we're going to bring this up. Now I actually have it on map, so I'm going to show you how you can find, well, let's spin this around so we get the coast right. Spin this down. We're going to go up to Oregon here. And this is how you use the map. We can see that this is Newport, so we're going to hit right here, come in here, Walport, and that right there is going to put us, we have it favored, so we're going to hit view, and now we've got Walport. And I showed you that October 22nd, which is a great day for crabbing. Another feature is you can hit this, and this will show you how much water movement there is. The wider the bar, the more water movement. The smaller the bar, the least amount of water movement. And those are the days that you want for crabbing. Again, now we're looking at November 22nd. Crab will be feeding the entire time here. You can see the blue or the darker section. That's actually nighttime. This will be daytime. I would prefer it to be a high tide. The crab like the high tide, but they'll be all in here. And this is a very good tide to go crabbing in. And this is Sausalito, and this is absolutely, you can't crab in the San Francisco Bay, but I'm showing this as an example. This is a ton of water movement. Actually, they refer to these as king tides, and this would be unacceptable for crabbing, just way too much water movement. But this is an ideal fishing tide, and I will be fishing this day because there will be tons of fish to be caught in the bay that day. That water's going to be screaming. So this is a really good fishing tide, but a terrible crabbing tide. Let's talk about cooking our crab. This is my little crab boiler that I'll be using. I'll show you that on the coast. Sometimes I'll actually have Robbie cook them up if I'm in Walport because it's easier. He tends to boil them. Most people boil them about 20 minutes. I don't boil them, I steam them. So I'll put water up to about here. Most people boil crab for about 20 minutes. I steam them. I usually go for about 24 minutes. Steaming you think would be hotter, but I just found it cooks out the crab perfectly for that. I put about this much water in. I'll drop in a little colander. Keeps the crab off the bottom. I can fill this up with usually about 10 California crab or 12 Dungeness crab from Oregon. This much water, they steam, it bubbles on top. And these crab are cooked, but they're not washed out. I don't like to fill it up with water, and when people boil them, I just feel like you lose a lot of the flavor and the taste of the crab. And you can use this to pull off the crab. You should chill them right away as soon as you're done. Put them on ice and sprinkle some ice on top, get them chilled, and then you can clean them, package them up, and you're talking feasting like a king. So this is my little setup for if I'm cooking my own crab. If I'm having other people cook them, they usually boil them. It's still good. It's not as good as steaming. I sometimes will put a little tab of butter in there. It helps clean the pan because you get all the crab particles or whatever that stick to the side of the pan. It's a little bit easier cleaning. It adds a nice flavor. I don't add any salt to the water because there's plenty of salt in the crab. I don't even do it in salt water. I use fresh water. But I just steam it in fresh water for about 22 minutes, 24 minutes, and I've had really good luck with my crab, and it's the best tasting crab I've ever had. So we'll have a crab cook-off here coming up in November.